The bitter December wind cut through my thin coat as I rushed into Bellissimo, already 15 minutes late for my shift. My fingers were numb, my carefully styled hair now a disaster, and my heart was pounding. Not just from running, but from fear of losing this job I desperately needed. "Sophia, where have you been?" Marco, the floor manager, grabbed my shoulders, his eyes wide with panic I'd never seen before. "Table 12, VIP section, you're serving them tonight." "What? But that's not my section." Jessica called in sick. Listen to me carefully. His fingers dug into my shoulders. "These people are important, very important. Don't screw this up." I nodded, tying my apron with trembling hands. 6 months ago, I'd fled Boston with nothing but a suitcase and my savings after my ex-boyfriend's control had turned frightening. New York was supposed to be my fresh start, but fresh starts were expensive, and this job was all that stood between me and homelessness. "Who are they?" I whispered. Marco's eyes darted around the kitchen. "Business associates of Mr. Castellano." My blood ran cold. Everyone at Bellissimo knew about Luca Castellano, the mysterious owner who rarely appeared but whose name was spoken with equal parts fear and respect. Rumors swirled. Legitimate businessman, or something far more dangerous? The private dining room glowed with warm candlelight. 6 men in expensive suits sat around a table, their conversation stopping abruptly as I entered. But only one gaze locked onto mine and held it. He sat at the head of the table, dark hair perfectly styled, sharp jaw shadowed with stubble, a suit that probably cost more than my annual rent. But it was his eyes that froze me in place, dark, intelligent, and utterly cold. Younger than I expected, maybe 35, but radiating authority that made the air feel thinner. "Good evening, gentlemen, I'm Sophia and I'll be your server tonight." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "May I start you with drinks?" I moved around the table efficiently, hyper-aware of the headman's eyes following my every movement. When I reached him last, he didn't immediately respond. "You're new," he said, his voice low and smooth with a hint of an accent I couldn't place. "Yes, sir, 6 months. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Scotch? Neat." As I turned to leave, my phone vibrated in my apron pocket. I never took personal calls during shifts, but my grandmother in hospice care back in Italy, I'd kept my phone on me constantly this past week, dreading the call I knew would come. I glanced at the screen, her nurse's number. My heart lurched. I stepped back near the wall and answered quietly, the Italian slipping out automatically. "Pronto?" The nurse's voice was soft and regretful. My grandmother's condition had worsened. If I wanted to see her one last time, I should come soon. I closed my eyes, my hand curling into a fist. When I opened them, the entire table had gone silent. All eyes were on me. But the headman's gaze was different now, sharper, more focused, as if seeing me for the first time. I'd spoken fluent Italian in front of them, native Italian. "I apologize for the interruption," I stammered, slipping my phone away. "Would you like to order your meals now?" The dinner proceeded with excruciating slowness. Each time I entered the room, I felt his eyes on me, following my movements with an interest that made my skin prickle. The men shifted between English and Italian, discussing business with increasing frankness as the wine flowed. They didn't know I understood every word. By dessert, my nerves were frayed. It was nearly midnight when they finally prepared to leave. The headman signed the check without looking at it, then held it out to me, his fingers lingering just a moment too long. "Grazie, Sophia," he said, my name rolling off his tongue in perfect Italian. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, and stepped back as they filed out. At the door, he paused and looked back at me. "Buonanotte," he said softly, and then he was gone. An hour later, as I finished cleaning up, Marco appeared beside me, his face pale. "Mr. Castellano would like to speak with you before you leave." My stomach dropped. "Mr. Castellano was here?" "He was at table 12, Sophia." Marco's expression was strange. "He owns this restaurant. He owns half the block." On weak legs, I followed Marco to the small office at the back. He knocked once, then gestured for me to enter. Luca Castellano sat behind the desk, jacket removed, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. A single lamp cast shadows across his sharp features, A large man stood by the door, clearly a bodyguard. "Sit, per favore," Castellano said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I sat, my back rigid, hands folded to hide their trembling. "You speak Italian like a native," he said without preamble. "I am a native, sir. I grew up near Florence." "Yet your English has almost no accent." "My mother was American. I grew up bilingual." He nodded slowly, as if fitting puzzle pieces together. "And the call you received tonight, bad news from home?" My eyes widened at his directness. "My grandmother is very ill. The nurse said I should come soon if I want to see her before." I couldn't finish. To my surprise, something softened in his expression. He opened a drawer and removed a slim black folder, sliding it across the desk. "Open it." Inside was a first-class ticket to Florence departing tomorrow afternoon, and an envelope containing more cash than I'd ever seen at once. "I don't understand," I whispered. "I need someone who speaks native Italian to accompany me on a business trip. 2 weeks in Florence and Rome. My usual translator is unavailable. The ticket is yours, as is the advance payment, if you agree." My mind raced. It seemed too perfect, too convenient. What would this work entail? Translation during meetings, some light administrative work, nothing. "Beyond your capabilities." "Why me? There must be professional translators." "I prefer someone authentic," he cut in, his eyes intense. "Someone who understands the nuances of both languages and cultures. And I find I prefer someone I've personally vetted." "Vetted?" The word sent a chill down my spine. "You don't have to decide now," he said, leaning back. "The flight leaves at 3 tomorrow. If you accept, a car will pick you up at your apartment at noon." My blood ran cold. He knew where I lived. "How do you—" "Employee records," he said smoothly. But something in his expression told me there was more. I stood on shaky legs, the folder clutched in my hand. "I'll think about it. Sophia," he added as I turned to leave. "Your grandmother doesn't have much time, neither do you." The implied threat hung in the air. I was halfway home in a taxi when I realized he hadn't asked if I had a passport, hadn't asked if I could get time off work. He already knew everything he needed to know. And despite the alarm bells ringing in my head, I knew I would be in that car at noon. What I didn't know was that I would never return to my old life again. Sleep eluded me. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I would go to Italy. I would see Nona one last time. Whatever came after, I would face it. At precisely noon, a sleek black Escalade pulled up to my building. I grabbed my suitcase and descended, my heart pounding. At the airport, I was escorted past security through a private entrance I didn't know existed. A petite woman in a crisp suit introduced herself as Elena, Mr. Castellano's assistant. "He's waiting in the private lounge," she said, leading me through corridors I'd never seen. The lounge was elegant and exclusive. Plush seating, a stocked bar, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the tarmac. And there, standing by those windows, was Luca Castellano. He turned as we entered, and once again I was struck by his sheer presence. Today he wore a charcoal suit that seemed to absorb light. "Sophia," he said, my name sounding different in his mouth. "I'm pleased you decided to join me. I need to see my grandmother." Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. "Direct, I appreciate that." He gestured to a seating area. "Please sit. We have time before boarding." A server appeared with coffee. Espresso for him, cappuccino for me. I hadn't told anyone my coffee preference. "I took the liberty of having some clothes sent to the plane for you," he said. "Business attire appropriate for the meetings we'll be attending." My spine stiffened. "I brought clothes." "I'm sure you did," he replied, his tone making clear what he thought of my wardrobe. "These are simply additional options. Consider it part of your compensation." "When will I see my grandmother?" I asked, changing the subject. "We arrive in Florence tomorrow morning. You'll have the afternoon free to visit her. After that, I'll need you for a dinner meeting." For the next 20 minutes, he outlined my duties. Translating during meetings, accompanying him to social functions, handling correspondence. Nothing that seemed inappropriate. Yet the undercurrent of his words, the way his eyes never left mine, made my skin prickle. "Do you have any questions?" he asked. "Why me, really?" He studied me for a long moment, then pulled out a slim folder and placed it on the table between us. Open it. Inside was a photograph of me at my college graduation 3 years ago, arm around my grandmother. Next was my degree from Boston University, then pages of what looked like a background check, addresses, employment history, credit score. The final page made my blood run cold. A police report I'd filed against my ex-boyfriend with photographs of bruises on my wrists and throat. How did you get this? My hands trembled. I make it my business to know who works for me, Sophia, even those who serve drinks in my restaurants. This goes beyond knowing your employees. This is an invasion of privacy. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Privacy is a luxury few can truly afford. He took the folder back. I chose you because you're qualified, you're desperate, and you have no connections that would make you a security risk. I have family. A dying grandmother, he cut in. No parents, both deceased, no siblings, no serious relationship since you fled Boston. You keep to yourself, work hard, and try to be invisible. His eyes bored into mine. But you were never invisible to me, Sophia. A chill ran down my spine. How long had he been watching me? Our flight is ready, he said, standing. Shall we? The private jet was cream leather and polished wood, with only 8 seats and a private bedroom at the rear. Elena was already aboard, typing on her laptop. A bodyguard sat near the front. Once we reached cruising altitude, I tried to read, but exhaustion overtook me. I drifted off. I woke to a gentle touch on my shoulder. Luca's face was inches from mine. We're stopping to refuel, he said. Iceland, about an hour. At the small terminal, Luca disappeared with Elena, leaving me momentarily unwatched. This could be my chance to escape. But I was in Iceland without my passport, which was still on the plane, and my grandmother was waiting in Florence. When Luca found me in the small cafe, he slid into the seat across from me. Your grandmother's condition has stabilized, he said. I had my people check. The doctor believes she'll hold on until we arrive. You checked on her? My voice caught. Why? It would be unfortunate if we arrived too late, he said simply. I dislike wasted journeys. His callousness should have angered me. Instead, odd relief washed over me. Thank you. He inclined his head slightly. We should return to the plane. Dawn was breaking as we descended into Florence. Golden light spilled across the familiar landscape. Terracotta rooftops, the winding Arno River. Despite everything, my heart lifted at the sight of home. We'll be staying at my villa in the hills, Luca said as the plane touched down. A car will take you to see your grandmother this afternoon, then bring you back for the dinner meeting at 8. The villa, when we arrived, stole my breath. A sprawling estate of honey-colored stone surrounded by manicured gardens and olive groves. An older woman named Maria showed me to my room, larger than my entire New York apartment, with a 4-poster bed and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Tuscan countryside. My suitcase had been delivered, but what caught my eye were the garment bags in the closet. At least a dozen containing thousands of dollars worth of designer clothing, all in my exact size. On the bed lay a velvet box with a note. For tonight's dinner. Ellie. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a single pearl pendant. I sank onto the bed, the full weight of my situation crashing down. I was in Luca Castellano's world now, surrounded by his wealth, dependent on his generosity, subject to his control. At 2 o'clock a car took me to the hospice. My grandmother looked frail but comfortable, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. Sophia mia nipote, she whispered. We talked for an hour, her drifting between past and present. Then, during a lucid moment, she said something unexpected. This man who brought you home, who is he to you? He's my employer, just my employer. She squeezed my hand. Be careful, Sophia. Men like that take what they want. Then her eyes grew distant. Your grandfather was like that, so handsome, so determined. When he decided he wanted me, there was no escape. A dreamy smile touched her lips. Not that I wanted to. When I returned to the villa, Maria helped me prepare for dinner. The midnight blue cocktail dress fit perfectly. the pearl necklace gleaming at my throat. When I descended the staircase, Luca was waiting, dressed in a black suit with a tie that matched my dress exactly. His eyes swept over me with an intensity that made my skin flush. "Perfect," he said simply. The dinner was at the villa. 4 Italian businessmen, old money with old connections. I translated discreetly, leaning close to Luca's ear, breathing in his scent, feeling his warmth. As the wine flowed, the conversation turned to the real purpose of the meeting. A shipping company Luca wanted to acquire. Then one of the men, Rossetti, leaned toward his companions and said in rapid Italian, assuming Luca wouldn't understand, "Let him have the company. The real value is in the warehouse contents in Livorno. He doesn't know about those yet." My fingers instinctively touched the pearl at my throat, the signal Luca had taught me. His eyes flicked to my hand, then back to Rossetti, his expression never changing. "Gentlemen," he said in English, "let me propose a revised offer." He outlined new terms that included full inventory rights to all properties, including the Livorno warehouses. The Italians froze, exchanging alarmed glances. Rossetti's eyes narrowed on me. "You said she was just an assistant," he said coldly in Italian. "I said she was my associate," Luca corrected, also in Italian, "and a very valuable one." By midnight, a deal had been reached that clearly favored Luca. As we bid the men farewell, Rossetti's parting words were ominous. "You should be more careful about who you trust, Castellano. Beautiful women have a way of complicating matters." "I trust Miss Russo implicitly," Luca replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. When the door closed, Luca turned to me and smiled, genuine warmth that transformed his face. "You were perfect," he said, leading me to his study. "Come, we should talk." In the study, he poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to me. "Those warehouses are very important," he said, loosening his tie. "What they're storing there could cause significant legal issues for all 4 men." "Illegal goods," I said quietly. His eyes met mine. "Let's just say customs officials are easily distracted by the right incentives." I set down my glass. "Why are you telling me this? Why involve me in something potentially illegal?" He moved closer. "Because you've proven your value tonight. And because I want you to understand what you're part of now." "Part of?" I took a step back. "I'm here to translate for 2 weeks. That's our arrangement." Something darkened in his eyes. "Arrangements can change, Sophia. Not this one." For a long moment he studied me. Then, to my surprise, he nodded. "Of course, you'll see your grandmother whenever you wish. But," he continued, taking a step toward me, "I think we both know this arrangement has evolved beyond what we initially discussed." My back hit the bookshelf. He placed a hand on the shelf beside my head, effectively caging me in. "You felt it tonight," he said, his voice low. "How well we work together. How perfectly you fit into my world." "I don't belong in your world," I whispered. "Don't you?" His fingers brushed the pearl at my throat. "You wear it as if you were born to it." I couldn't deny the electricity between us, the way my body responded despite all my mental warnings. "I should go," I said. "It's late." His hand moved from the pearl to cup my cheek. "Sophia," he said, my name almost a caress. "Don't run from this. From me." Before I could respond, his lips were on mine, gentle, questioning rather than demanding. He pulled back before I could decide whether to respond or resist. "Good night, Sophia," he said, stepping away. "Sleep well." I fled to my room, my lips burning from his kiss, my mind in chaos. As I slipped between the silk sheets, I knew with sinking certainty that I was marked by him now, branded by his kiss, chained by his gifts, bound by whatever dangerous game he was playing. And the most terrifying part wasn't that I didn't know the rules. It was that despite everything, a part of me wanted to play. 3 months later, I stand on the terrace of our Swiss chalet, watching snow fall on the Alps. Luca's arms encircle me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. Nona passed peacefully 2 months ago, her hand in mine, Luca standing vigil beside us. The business with Rossetti was resolved, though I never asked for details. Some questions are better left unasked. Last week, Luca placed a ring on my finger. A family heirloom, he said, that belonged to his grandmother. "What are you thinking?" he murmurs against my ear. I turn in his arms, looking into the dark eyes that once seemed so cold but now hold such warmth when they look at me. "I'm thinking about that phone call," I say. "The one I answered in Italian in front of a stranger in a restaurant." His lips curve. "Best call you ever took. You had me investigated. You manipulated the situation. You gave me no choice." "I gave you every choice, Tesoro," he corrects gently. "You could have refused the ticket, refused to get in the car, refused to stay." He's right. At every turn I chose this, chose him. "No regrets?" I ask. "None," he says firmly, then kisses me with the passion that still makes my knees weak. "You?" I think about my tiny New York apartment, my struggling existence, my lonely life. Then I think about this. The passion, the purpose, the feeling of belonging to something larger than myself. Of belonging to someone who looks at me as if I'm precious beyond measure. "None," I whisper against his lips, "not a single one. It began with a phone call in Italian. Answered in front of the wrong man at the wrong time, or perhaps the exactly right man at the exactly right time. And when he said, 'Don't let her leave,' he wasn't just talking about that night. He meant forever.